I think what's missing today is mentorship. And so, oftentimes when people talk about role models, they talk about superstars, basketball players. But in the village of Hempstead, it was that extended family, that uncle that watched over us all growing up, made sure that we did the right thing. Local clergy, pastors, that was inspirations to me. So those was my hero. It was the local grown-ups in the village of Hempstead that made sure that we stayed on the right track.
And thank you for joining me again at another episode here of Rosie Talks Life. It's truly been such an overwhelmingly warm experience. The way you've received me, sharing the links and engaging in conversation, giving me tips and suggestions. I just want to thank you so much, though, for being a part of this journey here on Rosie Talks Life. The other day, I was going through a rough period, and I had a friend, because I was like, I'm just so tired of, trying to do the same thing over and over again and just being stuck. You know that feeling that you're trying to get to that next space or overcoming a hurdle, and you feel as though that you're giving and giving, but nothing is coming your way. And I had a friend that said to me, Roseanne, I was thinking about you and the scripture. And yes, it's not church, but sometimes things are very apt. And just bear with me. This scripture from Galatians 6:9 came to me for you. And it said, let us not become weary in doing good. For a proper time, we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. And I was like, what? Because that's how I was feeling. Like everything I was doing was for naught. And I said, that's Galatians 6:9. And she said, yes. And then I understood. I have a way of being inspired and pushed by my mother, who is no longer with me. But her birthday was 6/9. And I said, okay, mommy, I get it. Sometimes we're inspired by different people, situations, or sometimes we may think it's a coincidence. I don't think it's that. I think that we are given information that is pertinent to us at the right time and space. It could be even from a puppy. I mean, you never know what it is that you needed at that moment. And at that moment, I needed that inspiration. Don't give up, people. It is not something that happens overnight, meaning whatever it is that you're going through. If you are having anxiety, there's help out there for you. There's so many different resources. There are even good friends who can be a sounding board just to listen. Never get tired of doing the right thing. It's easy just to go, they'll never know, but you'll know, So don't change the fabric of who you are because of a circumstance that you're in at that moment. Things change, things evolve, and sometimes you're in it because you have to go through it. And sometimes we look back later on and go, wow, now that makes sense because now I'm going through that, or I see someone else having that problem. So I'm only here to just say to you, stay the course, never compromise who you are, because it's so much easier not to do the right thing. You know that's right. But be the person that who you are, the person with integrity, the person who knows within their soul that they're staying the course. I continue to wish you the best. And again, as always, thank you for joining me at Rosie Talks Live. Up next, we will be having Mayor Walyn Hobbs from the village of Hempstead. Thank you again. I remember when, after the summer holidays, these parents decided they had to clean you out. And it didn't help that one of those parents was a pharmacist. So he had everything. And I remember specifically the medicine this particular man, aka my daddy, aka the terrorist at the time, would give me. And it was called Antipar. 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 And I distinctly, and I could still play this taste back in my memory of trauma. I'm going to need therapy. I could taste it still. And I remember when it was a battle of wills to see who was going to swallow that Antipar. Meaning if I was going to swallow it. So it would be a mapped out Saturday evening, afternoon. And Roseanne, take it. Roseanne, I don't want to. I don't like it. I don't want it. Open your mouth. I don't want it. I don't want it. And somehow they'll get that down my throat, past my esophagus, into my stomach. All while I begin to feel a little lightheaded and I'm gonna throw up. You better keep it down. I remember when the washout session would happen. Disgusting. But then I'm nostalgic. But I do remember when we all had to line up and get our set of washing out because we obviously did too much over the summer. Yeah, I remember when. So welcome back to another episode here of Rosie Talks Life. I'm actually truly excited to have my next guest on with me. When I approached him after a meeting, I said, "Oh, would you come on my little show?" And he goes, "Sure." I go, "Wow." So I am really pleased to say that I have the Honorable Mayor Walyn Hobbs from the village of Hempstead here with me today. It is, from me, I'm a proud resident, if anyone knows, of the village of Hempstead. And I really wanted just to take a moment so I could have a conversation with the mayor on a more of a getting to know you. So this is not anything that is politically, skewed, but we may touch on something, but nonetheless, I really want it to be something where not only do I learn something, you may learn something, and you may also be inspired. So first of all, welcome, and thank you for being here with me on Rosie Talks Life.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here, and when you asked me, I was happy to definitely do it. There's several things. I think I try to stay camera ready, so I'm not afraid of
you
camera.
are camera. You are sharp. Yeah.
And we just like to engage in conversation.
Absolutely. So I kept thinking, how do I want to do this interview with you? And I said, you know what? I want to get to know you. Because it's so funny that we could live in the village, and I think the village now has about 55,000 plus residents.
Yeah, well, census says 55,000, but we have over 70,000 residents.
There you go. Thank you for saying Thank you for saying that. And we are a strong, diverse, and a place that people, they sleep on us, as the young people would say. But you have now been the mayor for the last two and a half years. Yes. Right. And I've lived in the village for almost 30 years, and it says you have been a resident for over 40.
Over 40 years.
Right. So it's so funny that we could be in the village and have the circle of similar friends and have never met until, not now, but, a few years ago. Right. Tell me something. How old were you when you came to were you a young man, a teenager when you came to the village?
Well, no, born and raised in the village of Hempstead.
Oh, you are?
Yes.
I'm
happy to be. I'm happy to be 61 years young.
Absolutely.
You are? Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, wow.
So I was born and raised in the village of Hempstead. grew up on Martin Luther King Drive. Back in the
Okay.
days, they used to call it Wilklow.
Okay,
So
okay.
I'm Hempstead born.
Born and bred. Okay, so what were you like as a child growing up in Hempstead and back in those days? Because anytime I meet anyone from Hempstead, boy, they're proud to tell me what it was. Go Tigers, this, that, everything. So tell me, what was that like?
Well, I think my mother said it best at my swearing-in ceremony.
Yeah.
That my grandmother always said, she said, I don't know, it's something about this young man. He's going to be something.
Oh, wow.
Either a murderer or something good.
That sounds like a grandmother.
So
That baby gonna either kill somebody or raise somebody up. I could
Absolutely,
Right.
absolutely. So,
Right.
fortunately, it was the opposite of doing,
Right.
murdering. But
But I'm sorry. Yeah,
and so, just your average young person growing up in the village of Hempstead. I actually played on the football team in junior high school.
Wow.
Yeah.
where it is now, the same middle school?
Same middle school,
Okay.
yes, same middle school. I was more into arts. I draw, and yes, I draw. I'm a singer, so that's the arts was more my passion.
Sir, we'll talk. Okay, so who were your role models when you were growing up?
Well, I think what's missing today is mentorship. And so,
Very true.
oftentimes when people talk about role models, they talk about superstars, basketball players. But in the village of Hempstead, it was that extended family, that
Yes.
uncle that
Yes.
watched over us all growing up, made sure that we did the right thing.
right.
Local clergy, pastors, that was inspirations to me. So those was my hero.
Right.
It was the local grown-ups in the village of Hempstead that made sure that we stayed on the right track.
And you struck on something, mentorship. I mean, we don't realize how important that is.
It's very important.
That if we could just continue that cycle, and there's some strong mentors still within the village. So I'm not, taking away from that, but that is something, an act of service that you can do in
That's
your
right.
community. Yes. So tell me, why did you get into politics? Because first of all, my goodness, you were deputy mayor, you're an investigator for complaints for the village, firefighter.
Yes.
Jeez. You're an ordained minister.
Yes.
Your church is you was telling me in Brooklyn.
In Coney Island,
Coney
yes,
Island.
in Brooklyn, on Mermaid Avenue, and I've been pastoring for 29 years.
You see what I'm saying? I just found out that you're an artist. Like, you can draw, you can sing. You sit on the board of. We sit on a board together, but you sit on a board, many boards, and in the past, and
Yes, so some of the boards that I served on, I was a member of the board of directors of Nassau County Medical Center,
Yes, NMC,
the Housing Authority, the Community Development Agency, and as mayor, I'm a member of different mayoral organizations.
Correct.
The U.S. Conference of Mayor, New York Conference of Mayor, the African American mayors.
sir, when do you sleep? I'm just asking.
Once in a while.
Good. You look good for it, but my goodness. So, what made you want to get into politics, even though you were the deputy mayor and you were involved heavily? What made you want to go further?
Well, before becoming deputy mayor in the village of Hempstead, the deputy mayor is actually an appointed position. The mayor appoints his deputy mayor.
That's right.
But the elected position is called trustee. And the reason why I ran for elected office, again, I served as a pastor in Coney Island for 29 years. And when I went to Coney Island 29 years ago, you had abandoned buildings, vacant lots, and the community was just crime written. But being there, understanding that what was missing, and I think that this is also what we have to focus on today when we talk about helping people. It's about empowering people and not enabling people. You could give the cheese and the bread and all that, but teach people how to get an income, how to be able to buy their own cheese and bread and share that. And so that was the type of ministry that we've had in Coney Island for 29 years. And I watched Coney Island move from empty lots, abandoned buildings, to just growing. The community was diverse. And I lived in Hempstead, but I didn't see the same thing happening where I lived.
Right.
And so I'm watching a change in the community, that was downtrodden, and it began to grow. And I said, I want to see that happen where I live. I was fortunate enough, my wife and I, to have our first home, starter home in Hempstead. You know, it wasn't the biggest home, but when we were able to upgrade, instead of moving out of Hempstead, we stayed in Hempstead.
Right.
And so as I was able to grow in the community that I came from, I wanted to see the same thing for other people.
And, you know, you speak about abandoned buildings. We call them like the zombie buildings
Yes.
and stuff. I remember moving in the 90s, and it was a little rough, a little sketchy. We were younger. But I'm seeing the evolution. I do see where it will be the place that people will want to be. I've already seen it happening. So for that, you know, I want to know, do you think, for the things that you, and I know some of what your passions are for us, do you think that your message is effectively reaching the people of Hempstead?
Well, let's look at the history of Hempstead. Hempstead was the mecca of shopping in Long Island.
Yes, it was.
People came from Garden City, from Elmont,
From
from
Lynbrook,
Lynbrook, all over
everywhere.
to come to Main Street and shop. But when the malls open up, you know, that hurts small businesses.
Absolutely.
And then we've seen a decline of people shopping in Hempstead. And so now, as we're doing some economic development in our downtown
Right.
area, we're trying to bring that life back to the village of Hempstead. And so it's not really getting the message out there. It's more about getting people to change their mindset. There's a saying, for such as a man thinketh, so is he. And so if we constantly think negative about where we live, we have to see the great things in where we live and the potential of where we live. And so it's getting that message out there. And I'm happy to see that the message is getting out there because we have more people that talk positive about the things in Hempstead than negative.
Right.
Even now, the 2.5 years of being mayor, when you look at the news stories that come out about Hempstead, it's not always the negative that it
Right.
used to be.
Not the
Now they talk
MS-13,
right.
not the- that's
Now they
right.
talk about the positive things that's happening in Hempstead.
You kind of touched on something that I kind of want to go into further. So how do you stay motivated when you have people who may want to change, you know, the story of what it is that you're doing, you know, because there are those people that actively have their own, you know, vantage point, and it's not necessarily aligned with what you've been doing.
Right.
How do you stay focused? How do you know, rise above that?
Well, you know, listen, there's a saying that a lie travels faster than the truth, but when the truth gets there, it stays. And so you can't get distracted by people that make up their own narratives or have their own agenda. You know, we have a paper that's distributed in the village of Hempstead called the Freedom Press. And anyone that gets that paper, because it talks about Martin Luther King, it talks about Malcolm X, it talks about the struggle
Civil
of the
rights
African
movement,
American, yes.
right,
But the editor of that paper is a Caucasian lady that lives in Rockville Center. And so she puts a narrative on Hempstead like we, as a people, can't control our own destiny, that we need someone else to show us how to do things. And so, you know, when you deal with that, it's just letting people know, because so many people were surprised to find out that the editor of this paper wasn't, you know, some Nubian sister with
Right,
an
right, right.
afro picking
Right,
hair,
right,
but a
right.
lady from Rockville Center.
Right, right.
And so it's just, again, getting the truth out there. And when people hear the truth, they understand it.
Because that lady, and again, I'm going to touch on something else that you're saying, we should have more ownership and be more diligent in terms of our involvement, because she never misses a meeting.
Never.
She never misses a trustee meeting. She's there passing. I've been there. She passes out her paperwork, and she does have a few dedicated followers that, you know, puts out, you know, that information. I just wonder, how can we maybe engage? Do you have an idea of how we could continue to engage even the younger people? You know, because that's where change really happens. What do you think?
Well, one of the things that we've done is to activate our civic associations.
Good.
Because the civic association is the backbone of the community.
True.
Because as your civic association, you know the issues of the neighborhood where you live.
That's right.
Because Hempstead is the largest village in not only the state of New York, but in the country.
Thank you.
And so,
The
you know,
largest village.
when you're a part of your civics association, you bring to our attention issues, whether it's overcrowding, whether it's street need to be repaired. So we were able to get the civics active again, and I think that's helpful in getting the community more engaged. And I always encourage the resident, come out to the board meeting. Don't wait until you have an issue, but come out to find out what's going on. And more people have been coming out because when you and then we're on channel 16, 18, one of those channels on cable, and so we're just trying to get the information out to the residents. But we have more people now that's coming out, and they're silencing the naysayers, people that want to see Hempstead move in the right direction. And so more people that come out and put that positive narrative out, the naysayers they should feel the odd ones. You know what I'm saying? So
how often do you and the trustees meet?
Well, our board meeting is the first and third Tuesday of the month.
Right. And it's open to the public.
It has to be open to follow the open meeting law.
Right.
There's a law that dictates and tells us how we meet. So the only time that the trustees meet together, because we can't meet more than 3 trustees because you have a quorum.
That's right.
And technically that's a meeting.
Right.
And so, but there are times that trustees might have questions or something about the agenda or something that's going on in the community. So they are always free to come meet me in my office to discuss these things before the meeting.
So we're running out of time, and there's so many little pieces, because I want you to speak to the public right now about that there are opportunities to not only come and not only buy homes here, but to invest in businesses. You have different incentives for people to have signage. There's grants. There's so many things.
Absolutely.
You want to speak to that briefly?
Sure. So as I spoke earlier, in the village of Hempstead, we're in the process of some major downtown revitalization. We are the transit hub of Nassau County.
We are.
We have the Long Island Railroad. We have the Rosa Park bus station. And so the development that we're doing, I like to call it smart development. When we talk about low income or affordable, when you look at the village of Hempstead, our population, we have the largest population of low income and affordable housing compared to our surrounding neighbors, Rockville Center, Garden City. And so speaking to the governor, I'm a member of the policy committee of the New York Conference of Mayors, that let's see these other neighborhoods take some of the blunt, because in order for a community to thrive, you need more than affordable and low income.
Correct.
You need mixed use. You need to be able to attract your young professionals. And so that's the type of development.
We're not pushing out our underserved population.
Absolutely.
We're actually trying to engage and pull them in to.
Right. So and one of the worst things that anyone could say when you talk about development, and I understand where it comes from when people say gentrification, right?
Right.
We as a people have to understand, because Hempstead is a minority-run community, right? So improvement doesn't mean pushing us out, but it should mean it includes us.
Correct.
We should see ourselves deserving better.
Right.
We have been able to, through our federal government, state government, to bring close to $40 million in funding and aid to the village of Hempstead, which the village of Hempstead never pursued before. But it's about relationships. Again, I said, as a pastor of 29 years, I've developed these relationships from the White House to the governor's mansion before becoming mayor. And so when you have the relationship, people only give money to communities that they know going to do the right thing and going to be accountable. And so we've been able to do that. Just last week, we received from the Department of Justice $750,000 for our police department to increase the membership of the police department.
Okay, and even in doing so, we want to encourage where our representation is shown as well within the police department as well, because all of these things matter when we look at the collective.
Absolutely. And so what we are doing, I'm working with Nassau Community College, Old Westbury University, to develop programs to get our young people more engaged when it comes to law enforcement.
I like that.
Because unlike other people, like, their father was a police officer, their grandfather was a firefighter.
It becomes like a family business.
Right, absolutely.
Almost, right?
And so they're already prepped how to take the test.
Yes.
They already prep what to go to. So we have to do that for our young
Educate,
people.
right,
Educate
absolutely.
them because you have to pass the civil service exam. But the great thing about it is when you take the Nassau County Civil Service exam for police officer, if you're a resident of the village of Hempstead, no matter what you score on the test, as long as you pass, we can pull you off that list and hire you as a police officer.
See, because people, that's something that people should know.
Right.
Our time is like done, but before you go, I just want you to, because again, I see you as someone who's had a life of service, right? Can you give any sort of advice or any sort of word of encouragement to young people that you never know who's listening in terms of getting into service?
Yeah. Well, listen, it's so important that you get involved in giving back to your community. As you grow, as you experience success, it's always good to share that with somebody else, pull somebody else up. I like to put it like this, I wear many hats, I do a lot of things, but serving is doing something that you love to do and fortunate enough to have a salary to do it, but you would do it for free. And that's the difference.
Wow.
That you enjoy what you're doing so much that you would do it for free, but your gift would make room for you.
That's right.
And so fortunate enough to be, compensated for what you do. But that's what service is about, doing what your heart passion is.
I like that.
Working is not fun.
You're telling me?
But serving is the most enjoyable thing that you could do.
So, what a great interview, and thank you again, Mayor Hobbs, for joining me here at Rosie Talks Life. I've learned so much, and I hope you'd visit me again.
Absolutely, and thank you for having me.
Thank you, thank you. And coming up, we're going to have another exciting guest who can help you change your life. This is Charlene Rountree. She's going to come up shortly. She's a life coach, and she does so many other things. Thank you again, and we will be right back.
Babe, where's the pepper sauce? Thank you. Yeah, man. Hall's pepper sauce. No other heat will do.
Hall's pepper sauce can be purchased at Sam's Caribbean Marketplace, located at 225 Hempstead Turnpike in West Hempstead, or purchased online at sams247.com. Welcome back to our next segment of Rosie Talks Life. I have a very, very dynamic and interesting, I want to say almost, not even colleague, but you have really been a part of our family for a little bit, Charlene Rountree. So Charlene Rountree is a life coach, a health and life coach.
Yes.
Right. But that's just one of the few things that Charlene does. When I met Charlene, it was maybe a year and a half ago, maybe?
Yeah.
Right. Because she came to us as a parent trainer, because for those of you who may not know, we have a son who is on the spectrum of autism, and we had the services of a parent trainer, which I cannot speak enough about, because having a parent trainer, I'm just speaking from my perspective, allows us to stay on task. It allows us to make sure that we are working towards the goals of that person in our lives, and the parent trainer holds us accountable.
Yeah.
Big time. Sometimes people are resistant, but once you start falling into the rhythm, you find that it makes life so much easier, not only for you as a parent, but as well as the child and all of the caregivers that are involved. I've said a lot, but please welcome Charlene Rountree. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Tell us a little bit as you know, I spoke about my end, but a little bit about working with the families on the spectrum of autism and special needs. How did that go for you?
I enjoy what I do. First off, I do have a son who, Daniel, who is also, he has Down syndrome, and at age 7, he was diagnosed with autism. My journey with him is what led me to where I am today. He spoke, he was high functioning, and at age 7 woke up one day and started making vocal stems and no longer knew who I was, who his dad was, siblings could no longer speak. Pretty much was diverted back to being like a newborn. And so that's where my journey started, because I knew nothing about autism. I always feared the diagnosis. It intimidated me. I always prayed that I would never have to experience that. And so here I was thrown into it. And honestly, I just remember praying, getting on my knees, and that's all I could do, right? Seek godly wisdom and advice and directions. And then I started learning a lot about autism and about the holistic part and how it impacts the body and the mind, and had to seek out holistic services. And I also learned about the whole concept of a neurologist, right?
Yes.
And checking him for seizures. And so that's how my journey started. And then I started working with families based off my experience, right? Of working with my son. So I go into the homes, I help connect services to families. Right. There are so many services.
So many, and ones that are not even tapped into.
That is not tapped into. For some odd reason, they're kept a secret. For example, we're in New York, Long Island. There's OPWDD, where you can get services, waiver enrolled services for your children, where you can get COMPAB and respite.
So I'm going to slow that down. OPWDD, Office for People with Developmental Disabilities. Just in case people didn't know. Yes, go ahead.
And then there's also services such as self-directions, where eventually your child, when they become an adult, they can self-direct their lives to ensure that they're living their best life, just like you and I.
Right.
So going into the home and working with these individuals and with the parents, I take a holistic approach, because it's not just going in and I'm going to fix this family, or I'm going to fix this individual, or fix the mom or the dad. Right. It's really about going in and getting to know that family, right? Really trying to understand what makes them tick, what's triggering the behaviors, how are the parents interacting. And so it's really studying the family, understanding them, empathizing with them, setting goals, empowering them to accomplish the goals, rather than myself going in and saying, okay, you're going to do X, Y, and Z. That's not the approach I take.
So I'm going to stop you right there. So then, how then did you integrate, that part of your life to wanting to become a health and life coach?
So I am it's funny, my story. I am also a licensed social worker.
Yes, you are.
And so my journey into coaching started again with my son when he was 7. I knew nothing about eating gluten-free. I knew nothing about how sugar impacts the body and the brain, and how addictive certain things can be and trigger behaviors. So when my son was 7, I had to learn about that. And so I then started implementing, and a year after I fell sick. And then I had to learn what was going on with me. So my journey went on for for the past 8 years. It's a learning approach. So going into and tying that into coaching, it's I experience these things, and I've walked the journey, and I've learned that while I was walking the journey, there were so many moms out there, including myself, that did not know or didn't have that knowledge or that education to better themselves, to educate themselves about eating healthy, about dealing with life situations. And so I got myself into therapy. I hired a coach. And so the past 2.5 years, I've really done like an inner transformation work of myself. And through my experiences, I've decided that I want to become a certified health and life and transformational coach, to work with women and with children, and who are on the spectrum or who are not, to just help them, to empower them, to hold them accountable, to help them understand that you don't have to stay in this box.
I want to say something that you just said, and it just again, I'm sure somebody else heard it. You went and sought help for yourself.
Yeah.
You sought therapy. I can't speak enough about that. For I also am in therapy because it's a stigma. Now you're from the Caribbean, so just briefly speak to the fact that we avoid seeking help.
Yeah, so growing up in the islands, it was just like forbidden, right? You don't speak; it stays within the family, and it was something that I carried. Like we carry a lot of baggage,
Oh, we do.
and if we don't,
And generational baggage. too.
yes, and if you don't deal with that and decide, because it's a mindset thing, you have to decide that you want to make this change. You have to acknowledge, okay, so I have these baggages. I need to do the work to make those changes.
Correct.
And so not until you get to that point are you going to really see changes. And I'm going to tell you, honestly, it's messy. The journey of therapy is messy, but it is so worth the journey because you're going to come out on the end realizing like, wow, I have peace in my life. Not happiness, right? But peace. And that's what we seek to strive for.
I think that's a powerful and profound statement because there are parts of it that you have great epiphanies and aha moments, and you go, oh, that's where that came from.
Yeah.
And then you're able to resolve that.
Yes.
But it still is messy because then it opens up another door that you're like, no. But if you really want something, you'll keep working at it.
Yes.
So tell us then about how would that then integrate into everyday life for someone who may want to seek you out as a life coach, like families, relationships, parents. I mean, it's not just for families with people on the spectrum. It's
Right.
Tell us, what are you offering us?
So I think it's, coaching helps you to create a healthy lifestyle balance, right? Creating those healthy habits. And, we hear habits and it can be intimidating, but we create healthy habits on a daily basis. We evolve every day,
Yes.
right? We're going to learn something about ourselves today that we didn't learn about ourselves yesterday. But through coaching and using the tools that's incorporating through coaching, I believe, and I've seen it through my clients, where it can create that positive habits, healthy lifestyle, and you can start on fulfilling your purpose, but have positive relationships with yourself. You can have a positive relationship spiritually, holistically, with your children, with friends. And so it's an entire healing process. It deals with the now and into the future when you're coaching.
So how does it differ between a life coach and a therapist?
So life coach or health coach, we're working with currently or into the future. So if someone has a career change, finance issues, they want to change habits, they want to lose weight, on those levels, a coach is what I would recommend, right? If you have deep issues and traumas, I first recommend that you do seek out a therapist and you work through those things. And then at some point, yes, you can incorporate a coach, because the coach would just be a supplemental to actually help you. It's like a package, that's how you have to look at it. And, I just want to put out there to ladies as, we have to work on ourselves and do self-care. We owe it to ourselves because if we don't do it, no one else is going to do it for us. We're responsible for our mindset. We're responsible for our outbursts, our emotions. And you know what? We have children, and our children are looking to us. And when they see that we're not coping with life properly, we're actually encouraging those behaviors and teaching bad habits to them.
So there's so much more that we could get into, but so tell us how we can reach out to you, how we could learn more about what it is that you're offering. Speak to where we can find you.
Sure, you can find me on my website, which is www.charlenerountree.com. And there's no D in Rountree. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and on TikTok, and the coach Charlene Rountree. You'll be able to find me there. Or you can contact me again, through the website, and we can do a free discovery call to find out if we're a good match to work together.
I think that's great. So you offer that opportunity where people can maybe get to see if this is something that they would like to explore.
Oh, yes, I think that's very, very important. It's not all about myself. Like, we all have to generate income,
Right.
yes. But I think it should be a mutual relationship between
Right.
the client and myself as a coach to see that we can work together, because, I'm here to provide a service, but a big part of me is genuinely here to want to see people succeed and to help. It's just my purpose.
I love that. Thank you so much. I'm hoping that we could continue this conversation because there are different levels that we could get into.
Yes.
So people could maybe understand that it does relate to a part of their life that they need help with.
Absolutely.
I just want to say thank you so much, Charlene, for coming and giving us such great insights about, getting a life coach. Sometimes we sit in a place that we're afraid to make that next move.
Yes.
And you've given us great insights. And, you also offer the opportunity for people who may want to make that move, that they can contact you on your website. We have the information here online. Thank you again for joining me here at this episode of Rosie Talks Live. I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.